This time on Monkey Life. Marmoset James is rescued from a pet shop full of predators.
He's being quite a smart boy by keeping low and being quiet.
Capuchin monkey Marlow discovers a trespasser.
We're just sort of trying to see if we can get the toad back. Unfortunately, they're not very good at trading like the chimps.
And Brian tests Jeremy's patience.
Yeah, that's actually Brian's when he stops doing all this stupid showing off.
Monkey World, nestled deep in the English countryside, is the largest sanctuary of its kind on the planet. The team, led by Dr. Alison Cronin, rescue and rehabilitate unwanted and abused primates from all over the world.
Now it's just we'll get him back to the park, get him settled, so really happy.
The park provides a home for more than 240 monkeys and apes, and the aim is to give them as natural a life as possible. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and while most of the primate care staff are just making their first cup of coffee, the chimps in Sally's family are waiting for their hot drink to be delivered. Down in the kitchen, Jeremy's preparing breakfast for the group, just as he's done every day since Sally arrived nearly 20 years ago.
This is my way of being efficient. I set everything up the night before, and I've got all their, just doing their hot drinks, so they have a nice hot drink in the morning, and then they can have all their pills and potions at the same time. Sally has her quarter flakes because she gets a bit stiff and a bit old and stiff like me. And then we've got the contraceptive pills for Sally, Ash and Lulu, which can go in my pocket.
It's almost time. They all know the routine, but not everyone's playing the game.
Wait, behave.
Ash is holding back as usual.
Hang on a minute.
Rodders, the spoilt baby of the group, makes sure he's first in line.
Come on, Sal, get up.
Whilst Jeremy is still searching for Sally, Rodders helps himself to Ash's cup.
Sally! Are you there? Where were you? I thought you'd run away. You get me worried. The fact that I've gone in with Sally's group at least twice every day, pretty well every day that they've been here, you know, it's just part of the routine. It really makes this sort of thing possible. Now, it would be possible without that, but it's just a lot easier this way.
Brian knows that there's a cup with his name on it, but at approximately 9 years old, he's an adolescent and finding it very hard to control his emotions.
Oi, just behave. Brian, come here.
Adult chimpanzees are aggressive, and Jeremy is the only member of the team who goes into the enclosure with them. He's known them all since the day they arrived, and he helped care for Ash and Rodders when they were rejected by their mothers.
The way I can make this work is that I don't make pets of them. I say hello to them, and Brian's obviously a bit wound up this morning. The reason he's wound up is because his routine isn't quite the same. It's because you're here. It's your fault. And therefore, you know, he's showing off, doing the big dominant male thing. And, you know, and there's something isn't normal in his routine, so he's sort of just displaying to say, oi, this is my patch.
Before he came to the park at 3 years old, Brian was being trained as a photographer's prop in a tourist area of Mexico. He'd been stolen from the forests of West Africa and was destined to entertain holidaymakers. Alison and her late husband Jim had been pushing the Mexican authorities to confiscate all the monkeys and apes that worked on the beaches, and Brian was one of the first they acted upon.
Oh. He's got his mom.
That's oh, he's a good boy.
It wasn't long before he was brought back to the park and has lived with Sally's group ever since.
You can't be too worried if you're prepared to eat your banana.
Brian was still quite young when he came to Monkey World, But like so many others, he'd spent years without a family of his own kind to teach him how to behave.
What's that? Brian. Rodders is going to end up with this in a minute if you're not careful. One little sip. No hands, no hands. Yeah, that's actually Brian's when he stops doing all this stupid showing off.
While Brian's displays are natural, they signify a time of change for everyone. He may not stay a gentle giant, accepting Jeremy into his home for much longer.
He knows that I'm not a threat to his manlyhood, his status, and, you know, I'm just the boy who goes in and cleans up and gives out polos and does this unnecessary thing of washing windows. So, you know, that's all right. I can live with that. I can maintain a status quo, and I get what I want, and they get what they want, whether they want it or not. Here you go. Come here. Oh.
Brian eventually calms down.
Just drink it. Now, you leave him alone.
With Brian growing up so quickly, Sally's position as boss is set to change.
It's going to be good for Sally because she's going to have to realise that Brian is the dominant male now, and although she's never, ever, ever been able to cope with the dominant male, the fact that Brian's evolved into it over a long, long time, you know, might be able to just sort of sneak it in without her noticing, and I think it'll work. Right, can I just do the windows now? Is that all right? I don't know why I bother.
With 5 playful chimps around, it's a thankless task. Rodders is just waiting for him to finish. Brian gets the last word today, but it remains to be seen how his relationships with the rest of the group develop. Jeremy is not the only one up with the lark. Alison is heading off to Canterbury to rescue another victim of the UK pet trade in primates.
Yeah, off to Kent this morning, bright and early, to go collect a 5-year-old male marmoset called James. So I've got everything together just to make sure we can get him into the box safely and get him back to Dorset bright and early before it gets dark. Right, let's go.
Space is too tight at the park to be able to take in all the marmosets in need of a home. James can be offered a place because Betty Boo passed away 2 months ago, leaving room. Betty Boo had been living with Max, whose lack of social skills had made him impossible to team up with anyone else. Since he arrived at the sanctuary in 2008, she was the only friend he'd been able to make. The staff have tried housing him with 12 different marmosets, but none have worked out. Since Betty Boo's death, he's been alone.
He doesn't have the best reputation for past introductions that we've tried to do with different marmosets. So yeah, it kind of all played on our minds a little bit that Max was then left on his own and kind of what was going to be the next step for him.
They tried introducing Max to young Solomon, but even that went badly. The team had to act quickly to stop Max injuring Solomon. If Max doesn't accept James when he arrives, it could be his last chance of a housemate.
I'm holding out a lot of hope for it, although I'm not completely convinced it's going to work just because of Max's bad reputation. But yeah, I've got everything crossed that it really does work. James, we think, is a little bit older than Max, so hopefully he'll be able to maybe show a little bit of dominance over Max, which is possibly what he needs. Just someone to say, no, I'm not backing down. And then hopefully Max will give up any chasing or anything like that he wants to do, and they can just live happily side by side.
Because Max has had to live on his own since Betty Boo's death, the team have been finding ways to keep him occupied and as active as possible.
We've just filled a bottle with a bit of foraging material for him, some nice grapes and waxworms in there for him, a few holes in the side of the bottle so he has to reach in with his little arms and forage through the material to get the treats out.
So Max is having to work to get his dinner, just like he would in the wild.
We've put marmoset gum inside the black tube for him today. They would take gum from inside trees. Their natural behaviour would be to gnaw on tree trunks and on bark to get all the sap and stuff from inside there.
And whilst Max tucks into a good meal, he's unaware of the moves afoot to find him a companion. In Canterbury, Alison has arrived to pick up James from a reptile shop. When his present owner bought the place just over a year ago, it came with a pair of marmosets. The female died, leaving James on his own, surrounded by potential predators that were for sale in the shop. Since then, his owner has been hoping that Monkey World will be able to take James. He's well aware that marmosets aren't suited to being pets and that they need to socialise with others, so he's delighted that Alison now has room.
The food gets spit out once a day or?
In the morning and evening.
Yeah, twice a day.
He's done his best to give James a good life.
Hats off to the chap who took on this pet shop and took on the marmosets that were in this pet shop, because they've done quite a nice job in the back here kidding it up. But, you know, he's the first one to point out that marmosets don't make good pets and that really, you know, they need indoors and outdoors, and that's not possible in an urban and in a commercial environment. So really pleased that, hey, James is going to be able to come back with us to the park, and we'll get him out into the fresh air and hopefully companionship of his own kind.
But whether James and Max will get on remains to be seen. At Bueno's woolly monkey enclosure, the family are all out enjoying the sunshine, including mum Yurima and her latest addition.
Yurima and baby are doing fantastically well now. Baby's 5 weeks old, so she's just at that stage where she's starting to become aware of everything that's going on around her. She is a girl, and we've called her Ava. These guys come from South America, from the Amazon rainforest, so traditionally we've always gone for Latin American sounding names for them. Obviously Eva Perón was a very famous wife of the Argentinian president, so Ava just seemed like a really nice name for her.
This is Yurima's 4th infant.
She's a fantastic mum, very, very protective of her babies. They don't often get to go off and venture when they're very young. In fact, when Enzo was just a few months old and was trying to get off of her to go and explore, he could only go about a foot away from her, and she always had a hand planted firmly on his head to make sure that he couldn't get very far. So she is a very protective mum.
In the last 2 years at the park, as well as woolly babies Ava and Enzo, there's been Milo, Oaska's son, and 6-month-old Manny, Lavar's boy. But Ava's the only girl born in that time.
It's fantastic for the breeding programme because it means that later on she can go off and have babies of her own and be a really, really productive member of the breeding programme, hopefully.
And that's becoming more and more important, as overall, the numbers of woolly monkeys, both in captivity and in the wild, continue to decline. They originate from the tropical rainforests of South America, where they live in large social groups of up to 45. Each group is led by an alpha male, but hunting and deforestation have had a devastating effect on them.
They're classified as critically endangered in the Amazon, so there's not many years left for them to exist in the wild, unfortunately.
But it's a different story at Monkey World. Against the odds, woolly monkeys have bred well at the park. The 3 groups, led by Bueno, Lavar and Oaska, have produced 14 babies over the years. Little Ava has been born into a very close family.
It's a really family-based group. Bueno is everything that a dominant male should be. He's a protector, he's a disciplinarian, he's everything that you want in a dominant male. Yurima, again, everything you want in a dominant female. She's a fantastic mother, she disciplines the youngsters well, and she's a brilliant role model for the youngsters.
5-year-old Paolo was born into Lavar's group, but had to be hand-reared when he failed to suckle. He joined Bueno's family at just 5 months of age, and he's now the mischievous teenager in the gang.
They've taken him on fantastically well, and of course they've also welcomed Sarah now from America, and she's getting on famously with them as well. Her and Yurima do still have their little niggly moments, but that's just what females do. They do niggle with each other, but apart from that, they're doing really, really well.
Young Enzo doesn't get left out now the new baby's around.
Urema does still make time for Enzo. She does groom him, she likes to make sure that he's okay. He's perfectly happy now to go off on his own and play with Paolo or play with Sarah, but Mum is always going to be his special member of the group, and she likes to make sure that he's still okay, so you do see them grooming quite a lot.
And after all that grooming, it's time for Mum to enjoy some well-earned rest in the sun with her 2-year-old and his baby sister. Over at Malagasy, the lemur enclosure, the warm day has also brought these primates out.
Especially in the morning, the lemurs are really relaxed. They sort of sunbathe, which kind of looks like they're worshipping the sun, so they sort of sit up like this against the sun. They've got the whole of their front side of their belly is white, so they sit in the sun and then that warms them up. They don't like it when it's too hot, so often sort of at midday they'll go and have a bit of a sleep in the shade.
But there's one older member of the gang who's been causing concern for the team. They noticed 16-year-old Houdini was becoming very short of breath, but when his chest was x-rayed under anaesthetic, they couldn't confirm what was wrong. They didn't want to isolate Houdini, so he was put back with the rest of the group.
Everybody grooms him throughout the day. He's really involved in all of the social aspects that the group would do. If they go off feeding, he'll join them. His alarm calling, all the day-to-day things that the lemurs do together as a group, Houdini does.
Over the last few weeks, Houdini has responded well to a course of steroids, and now he's back to his old self, enjoying life to the full.
I'm happy that he's stable. He's still got quality of life, which is the most important thing for these guys. He loves sitting in the trees and eating the leaves. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy for the moment.
Just like the lemurs, the capuchins over at the lodge are making the most of the sunshine. Gorillan has recovered from his recent operation to amputate a finger, and he's happy resting his old bones. But one of the others is up to no good. Marlow has got hold of an intruder that could be a threat to him and others in the group.
The capuchins have just found a toad this morning, which can be a little bit of concern as they produce a lot of toxins. So even though these guys don't generally eat the toads, if they were to try, they might have an adverse reaction to it and become quite ill.
A quick taste doesn't whet Marlow's appetite, but there could still be lots of other fun to be had with this amphibian.
We're just sort of trying to see if we can get the toad back. Unfortunately, they're not very good at trading like the chimps, so trying to actually barter with them for it's going to be a bit of an issue.
Whilst the team work out a plan, Donnie watches the toad enviously. He daren't just snatch it off Marlow. The staff try treats to entice Marlow and his toad over to the fence.
Various rewards if they do happen to come over. We've got little milk pots which are perfect capuchin sized. As you can see, Joey really wants one. And lots of strawberries and various things. We've also got grapes on hand if we need them. But yeah, it's just a matter of waiting and seeing if we can actually get them over with the toad.
Marlow's not going to fall for that, but he is distracted enough to drop his plaything, and Donnie seizes his opportunity. It's not as fascinating as he thought, and he's soon off to look for something more active.
I guess we'll need to keep an eye on this and make sure that no one picks it up. And then once they're all inside tonight, we'll go and retrieve the poor toad.
Alison has just arrived back with James, the rescued marmoset, and the team are keen to get him settled in.
Right, all yours. New marmoset.
He's put in a bedroom right next door to Max, where the team can get a good look at him.
There he is.
Hi, hello.
Oh, there we go.
He's a little bit wobbly on his back feet, but he's got straight out of his carrier and he's exploring the whole room, which is really good. So, yeah, he seems really nice.
Neighbour Max can see James through the window, but can't get close to him.
Max rushed in as expected, to see the commotion. I mean, he's definitely aware that there's a new neighbour. Fingers crossed this is one that's going to work with Max, because if we can get them together, that'll be really nice for both of them.
Max seems relaxed at seeing another marmoset, but living with him might be a different story. They don't want Max getting up to his old tricks right from the start.
Max, if we did an introduction straight away, is at a huge advantage. He knows his whole enclosure, he knows all the staff, he knows everything about this place, whereas James doesn't, so he'd be very, very uncertain.
James needs time to familiarise himself with his new surroundings.
So we're going to wait a while, make sure that James is nice and healthy, and just make sure that he's got his confidence levels up, really, before we decide to put the two together.
But it's a promising start for James and Max.
Really happy with today's events. You know, people would often wonder, in terms of zoos or wildlife parks, why we waste our time and money running around the country picking up random, perhaps crazy marmosets, common marmosets. But it's what we do. Each individual matters. Mad Max next door matters. James now matters to us. And we care for them and try and rehabilitate them and give them back their lives again, because it's the right thing to do, and where people have failed them in the past, we're going to try and make it right. So really pleased for James and really happy he's here.
Next time on Monkey Life, Alison is in Vietnam on a mission to return rare pygmy lorises back into the wild.
We're working really hard to get our heads into pygmy loris world, and it's not an easy job.
And a groundbreaking achievement with the golden-cheeked gibbons.
We got him. All good. Our team are brilliant.